dead. At least for a little while anyway.
The movie opens with Jimmy, a prisoner, staring at pictures of himself and his brother on the wall of his cell. A guard soon arrives to take Jimmy out, as he is finally being released after years behind bars. Before leaving, he meets with the warden, who advises him to start fresh, follow the law, and be a good citizen. However, Jimmy seems uninterested, and eager to leave. Meanwhile, a corrupt police officer is seen dealing with a drug dealer due to his addiction. After his release, Jimmy retrieves his car, a gun, and information about his target. He then drives to California with a clear goal: revenge. Upon reaching his destination, he enters a building and kills the man he was after. Next, Jimmy meets Roy, the person who provided him with the car and weapon. Roy is a trusted informant, and Jimmy demands more information about others on his hit list, as he had been planning his revenge while in prison. However, Roy dislikes being threatened and calls his bodyguard. When the bodyguard realizes Jimmy is the ghost, a feared criminal, he refuses to intervene. Left with no choice, Roy hands over the details Jimmy seeks. As Jimmy tracks his next target, law enforcement investigates the first murder. A professional hitman, known simply as the Killer, receives a job to assassinate Jimmy. Detective Cicero, working with the corrupt officer, uncovers that Jimmy was once involved in a major heist and was called the driver due to his exceptional driving skills. A flashback reveals that during the robbery, Jimmy and his gang were ambushed by another group of thieves. The attackers killed Jimmy's crew, including his brother, who was murdered in front of him. Jimmy was shot in the head and left for dead, but doctors saved his life by implanting a metal plate in his skull before he was sent to prison. Cicero deduces that Jimmy is out for revenge. Jimmy soon finds and kills his second target, Kenneth Tyson, who had recorded the robbery. However, as he leaves, he is confronted by the hitman, leading to a shootout. Jimmy escapes unharmed, and the hitman realizes that Jimmy is only killing those directly involved in his brother's murder. Later, Jimmy visits his ex-girlfriend, who learns about his revenge mission. She expresses anger over being abandoned, but Jimmy insists he did it to protect her and their unborn child. Tearfully, she reveals that she lost the baby and has since moved on with someone else. She wishes him well, but Jimmy continues his vendetta. At a Nevada strip club, Jimmy finds his next target, Nixon. A brutal fight ensues, and Jimmy stabs him before fleeing. The next day, Jimmy learns from the news that Nixon survived and is in critical condition. Determined to finish the job, he heads to the hospital. Meanwhile, the corrupt officer, realizing Jimmy will return, rushes to the hospital. The hitman also receives Jimmy's location. Upon arrival, Jimmy sneaks into the operating room and mercilessly kills Nixon. Hearing gunshots, the corrupt officer chases after Jimmy, leading to a shootout. Jimmy manages to escape. Knowing someone is after him, Jimmy uses his driving skills to outmaneuver the hitman, eventually confronting him. Though he aims his gun at the assassin, he only shoots the car's tire. However, the hitman refuses to abandon his mission and shoots Jimmy, wounding him in the neck. Seeking answers, Jimmy visits his parents' home, suspecting his father orchestrated the ambush. His mother tends to his wounds and insists his father had nothing to do with it. This leads Jimmy to suspect his brother's girlfriend instead. Determined to complete his mission, Jimmy kills his final target, Alexander Jared, a missionary. However, before carrying out the act, he listens to one of Jared's sermons about the dangers of revenge. After hearing Jared's apology, Jimmy chose not to kill him. He then returned to the place Jared had mentioned, sat alone, and reflected on his past actions and sins. While he was looking at a picture of the people he had killed, a hitman arrived, aiming a gun at him. The hitman declared that he would complete his mission by killing Jimmy, but first revealed that someone else from Jimmy's gang was actually responsible for his brother's murder. This person, whom Jimmy knew well, anticipated that Jimmy would seek revenge and had hired the hitman to eliminate him first. Meanwhile, Detective Cicero uncovered the true identity of the person involved in Jimmy's brother's murder. Back at the confrontation, just as the hitman had his gun on Jimmy, a police officer entered and shot Jimmy. It was then revealed that this corrupt officer had orchestrated Jimmy's brother's murder and was also responsible for shooting Jimmy during the robbery. It was Jimmy's brother's girlfriend who had tipped off the corrupt officer about the robbery. Afterward, the corrupt officer met with the hitman, offering him money, but the hitman refused and warned the officer never to contact him again. Thinking he was in the clear, the corrupt officer called his wife, who turned out to be Jimmy's brother's girlfriend. However, at that moment, Jimmy appeared and shot him. The bullet hit a metal plate in Jimmy's skull, which had been placed there by doctors, saving his life. Detective Cicero arrived at the scene after Jimmy had left, secretly withholding evidence that implicated the corrupt officer. In the final moments, Jimmy scattered his brother's ashes into the sea, while Jared gave a lecture on forgiveness, hate, and revenge. The movie ends on this note: